All right, welcome to episode 2 of Shit Gets Real with Scott Connor and Heller Mouse. All right, so it's a time for like a little get to know you session. We had a little intro to Mr. Scott over here, but today I think we'll get like deep and personal and stuff. And first question I got for you, Scott, is Daily Planet or Daily Bugle?
Both.
No, she likes. How do you put it? I'm putting it out there, man. She likes the Bugle, but she's doing the whole planet.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, right. You should have seen before this video. I was gone. I was gone.
It's bad. His hat fell off. It was that bad.
The hat was in my face, and then it hit the ground. Yeah. I'm still feeling resentful. You got me. You got me.
Just for mixing up two, fictional newspapers.
That was awesome. All right. So, Scott,
Yes.
I hear you like comic books. Is this true?
Most of them.
Most of them.
Right.
Okay. I hear you like, all kinds of stuff. Like, how did you get into comic books? What was your start in this
Oh
hobby?
boy. When I was a kid. That's a really good question. I don't remember exactly where I started off with comic books, but when I was a kid, I remember watching Electric Company, and they had the Spider-Man series on there. And I do remember I was about 3 or 4 years old, drawing a Spider-Man comic on white notebook paper with lines on it.
Yeah.
Of course, the grandparents loved it. It was a big hit with them. Not so much around the other parts of the country. But, the first comic I remember buying with my own money
Okay.
was Micronauts.
All right. Now, Golden Micronauts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Starting from the beginning. Why, I don't know. I'm not really sure where I found it. Maybe I just saw it on a rack, spinner rack someplace else. That looks cool. That looks like Star Wars.
Right. I'm sitting here thinking that'd be 79, and I just had number one in my hands today. Yeah, 1979. Wow.
But no, even before then, before you had like allowance, people would buy you comics, and you had different things back then in Charlton, like the the military books, like Our Army at War, Our Fighting Forces. You get these at grocery stores, department stores, things like that.
Well, we've never really talked about this, but 79 is the same year I bought my first comic with my money.
What was that?
It was Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, and I still have it. It's got a pink cover, and it's got the Legion has gone to Krypton, and there's Super Baby with mom and dad there, Jor-El and the mom.
Right.
And I always point out that he's playing with some toy with a big pointy edge, and everybody wants to know what the hell is Cosmic Boy wearing, because it looks like he's got a Rocky. He's got a corset on. And they think he's from Rocky Horror Picture Show, for real. All right, moving on. Enough about me.
Tim Curry, okay.
It just blew my mind that it was the same year we bought. Okay, that's cool.
But I had comics before that.
Yeah.
Nothing I could spend my money on and make my own choice. Now, back in the day, you get packs of comics that were probably distributed by other companies, and you'd have 3 packs and things. So you could see the one on both sides, but you had no idea what was in the middle.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you got a pack and opened up hey, this is great. And other ones you go what the heck is this?
Yeah, that middle book was usually garbage. They knew to hide it, seriously. Yeah, I remember those days, man, and there was many of them that you could see where the plastic was pulled, and this is back in the day when I don't know, it seemed more notorious to rip the bag just to look in there. Nowadays it'd be nothing, but
right.
yeah, back then you did not rip it. You broke it, you bought it,
right.
Because you got your butt whipped. Yeah, I got redneck. Anyway.
But I think, earlier stuff like that was, even non-superhero stuff, like military titles, talking about Judo Master from Charlton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big shout out to Dakin Howlett real quick. He's a big Judo Master guy.
Gosh, what were some of the other things? I remember going to somebody's place that was babysitting me at the time. They had other kids, and I think one of the first things I saw there, which I didn't know at the time, later out turned to be, I'm drawing a blank now. Sea Devils.
Sea Devils. Russ Heath.
Yep. Exactly.
Love Sea Devils. Ooh, nice call.
Lost in Space, Space Family Robinson, Star Trek, of course.
Yeah.
Like Star Trek.
Gold Key.
Some of the UFO books that Dell, Gold Key were putting out. I think later on you get into superheroes. Your stereotypical Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, kind of thing.
Yeah. Did you ever read any of the? You're giving me a flashback here, but
Yeah.
did you ever read any of the Bugle Boys? Did you get into Disney stuff?
No.
Okay, moving on.
I don't know if it was the case or maybe it just wasn't available where I lived.
Since it sounds like we're from that same era, kind of starting out.
Right.
What about TV shows and cartoons and all that stuff? I mean, be honest. Back then you didn't stand a chance as a kid. You know what I mean? I mean, it was
You didn't
everywhere.
have, yeah, I mean, you didn't have all the things that you have these days. You didn't have the availability. Like
Yeah.
that.
But you still had like Wonder Woman and Incredible Hulk
Oh,
on
yeah.
Saturday mornings.
Oh, yeah.
Any of that?
Oh yeah. Gosh, ISIS. Do you remember that one?
Yep.
Shazam.
Yep. Live action shows.
Live
Yep.
action shows. There's a lot of live action shows actually. Far Out Space Nuts. Do you remember that one?
I remember Far Out Space Nuts. Loved it, man.
Yeah, the
Those-
Lost Saucer.
Yeah, the cross super shows used to come on. They
Right.
reran them. It was 5 o'clock in the
Mhm.
afternoon.
Animated Super Friends.
Yeah. Land of the Lost. And did you ever
Oh, yeah.
did you ever remember Bigfoot and Wild Boy?
Not 2 years later.
Okay.
No, I didn't get exposed to it back then, but I saw it later on. I thought, wow.
Yeah.
Like, those guys were on some pretty serious drugs.
Yeah. The shit got real.
It said Marty Krofft weren't co-producing, but he must have had him in somewhere else. Yeah,
Sigmund, Sea Monsters. Land of
Oh,
Lost.
yeah.
Land of Lost was
Yeah.
a big one for me. That was a big one.
yeah, like Marty Krofft.
And then we were talking about Electric Company, and you brought out an actor that I don't think a lot of people know is probably the
From-
first live action on TV Spider-Man.
Maybe. From what I have read.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have first-hand confirmation. Morgan Freeman
Yeah,
was the guy in the majority of the Spider-Man skits that they did on Electric Company.
yeah. That blew my mind. It just makes perfect sense, that they had many roles and nobody knew that Morgan Freeman.
Now, if it turned out it wasn't him, I'm sure a lot of people know we were wrong.
Well, that's Morgan Freeman. Until he says it didn't happen, I'm not going to believe it. But
fair enough.
yeah, that was cool. But yeah, I mean, the superheroes are everywhere when we was a kid. It just everywhere, everything. I mean, there's nothing like being 5 years old and I understand why you're feeling funny because you got Linda Carter, ISIS. You're just like something's funny's happened here. I don't know. So, and we talked about one of our biggest connections, like we said in the previous video, is the Johnny Quest thing. That's
Right.
actually sounds like that was one of the ways we actually met face to face. Is we both kind of just kind of gravitated
Converged.
at this convention
Yes.
at this Johnny Quest figure,
Right.
and there we are looking at each other.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was kind of cool. But Johnny Quest, now where I lived at, you had to get up early in the morning, like around 7 o'clock on Saturday mornings, and it was Johnny Quest and Battle of the Planets.
Yes.
Gatchaman.
I think my first exposure to Battle Plans was a little bit later on. I was
Yeah.
in later stages of elementary school when that came on, like 6th, 7th grade, somewhere in
Okay.
there. But I remember going home every day to catch Battle of the Planets on Turner,
Yeah.
TBS.
Okay, you saw it on TBS.
Yeah,
Okay.
TBS.
Now TBS gave me Ultraman, and we were talking about
I
that.
don't ever remember watching Ultraman.
Yeah, we had Ultraman, and then we were talking about. You asked me if I remembered it. We were talking about the television show where it was video games.
Yeah,
Like it was-
Starcade.
Yep, Starcade. Yeah, we watched all that stuff too at the
Yes.
same time. So this is fascinating, man. This is yeah.
Right.
Okay, so
Can you imagine kids now? They made a show about people playing video games?
it was the shit. It
Right.
was the shit, man. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a few times where Dig Dug and the Burger Time stuff. I mean, it was a race to the
I
finish.
remember TikTok.
Yeah, man. I mean, it got, you were on your freaking feet wondering who was going to win. But anyway. Oh, good times. Good times. All right. And what more about your hobby? Go for it.
I think the first thing that really got me interested in any, that was like science fiction especially. I was 3 years old, possibly 4, living in a little town in West Virginia. Mom was still in college, living with my grandparents. Got their first color TV.
Okay.
Big Zenith model. I said probably a 30-inch TV by today's standards, something like that. Pretty decent size.
Oh, yeah.
Giant wooden cabinet. Thing was, a huge cabinet.
Floor model?
Yeah, floor model.
Floor model.
Absolutely.
I know exactly
First
what
color
you're talking
TV.
about. Yep.
That night, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea came on.
Oh, I've heard you talk about 20,000
Yep.
leagues.
And I'll use an analogy. William Stout told me a story about the thing that got him interested in that was the original King Kong movie.
Yeah.
And the phrase he used was it did damage on a genetic level. Okay. Same thing happened to me with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. 3-year-old kid, West Virginia. You've never seen a giant squid. you've never seen a steampunk submarine. I think I blinked twice while the movie was on. And it hasn't been the same since. Then a few years later, Star Wars came on, and it just changed everything.
Yeah. There was before Star Wars, and there was after Star Wars in pop culture. And
It really was.
And
I think a lot of people younger than us now don't realize how much of an impact it had at the time.
Yeah.
It changed everything.
I touched on it before, probably about a year ago in a few videos, man, and there was people that remembered it and backed us up on that one.
Yeah.
So anybody that doesn't get it, I'm not going to get defensive on that one. They're just wrong.
Right.
It's not even up for argument. But yeah, before and after. I mean, the sci-fi before Star Wars, was miniature models that looked like they were made out of stuff you can get at Lowe's nowadays. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, the visuals, yeah. Other than 2001, which still holds up pretty well.
Yeah.
It was a whole new world visually.
Yeah.
When that came along.
Yeah. And what we were talking about is then all of a sudden Star Wars came out and you didn't have all the damsels in distress. You had a black guy in science fiction. And it wasn't like they were making a parade for it and all this stuff, but Lando Calrissian really broke a glass ceiling, and they didn't make a big deal about him. You know what I mean? Like, this is just Lando, but I digress. I'm sorry.
Well, there's black people in Star Trek, too.
Red shirts.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Other than Uhura, but...
Well, Martin Luther King made Uhura keep her job.
Yeah, that's a real interesting story that she told about that.
Yeah. Didn't mean, I digress. We'll go wherever you want on this, man.
That's fine.
I'm on camera and I'm trying to keep the shit real.
Real what?
Fuck, I don't. Okay. Oh, man. And then we get, I don't know if I'm going to take you chronologically here, but we're in the 80s. So when I say 80s, what's the first thing that pops in your head? We'll do word association. The next word will be nipple, but let's do it. 80s now.
I grew up in the 80s. That's when I was in high school.
You know what word comes to my mind when I hear 80s? Iron Maiden.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say that's the first thing I think I want to think of 80s, but I see what you mean. Yeah, that was a huge influence. I really can't say Alien because it came out in '79.
Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Blade Runner is where I got on board with Ridley Scott.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Alien came later. Remember, when we were kids, they came out the Alien toy. The actual Alien
Kenner
toy.
action figure.
Yeah, and then they jerked that thing before anybody could really get it.
Right.
And then the next big monster toy we had was the Kraken.
Oh, from Clash of the Titans?
Yeah. We went from the Alien toy to the Kraken toy.
I remember a kid that lived down the street when I was growing up.
There was always
had
a kid down the street.
Godzilla with the fist that would launch.
Yeah, man, it was made by the people that did the Shogun War.
Yeah, the exact same people did Shogun War.
Yeah, and he had the, you pull a little lever and this plastic flame would come out.
Would come out. Yeah.
2 pound, they had the 2 pound fist of plastic on Godzilla and Raiden. It was awesome, man.
I remember he had that, and I was like, man, that's really cool.
Now, comic-wise and stuff, now I've heard you play guitar, which other people haven't.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you were you into comics at the time, or just the music?
Well, I really didn't get into music until I was about 12 or so.
Okay.
AC/DC was really the first group I really got into.
Back in Black.
First album I ever bought was Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap on vinyl.
Gotcha.
That's a pretty interesting introduction to the rock and roll world.
Yeah,
when you're 12 years
so.
old. Yeah.
Dirty Deeds, man. They got TNT on it and stuff. I know those albums.
No, TNT's on the first album.
Yeah, Jailbreak is on the first album.
Jailbreak actually came out a lot later. It was released in Australia, but it never got a U.S. release until years later.
But what's weird is they sent the promotional video over here. That's what I found out.
Gotcha.
So I mean,
the video for the song Jailbreak.
That's, right? I'm glad you cleared that up because I was like, wait a minute, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. That's such a good song.
I guess in high school I probably wasn't reading as many comics and stuff as well when I was a younger kid. I really didn't get back into them heavily until I got back into college.
Okay.
And some friends of mine I knew in college were reading certain things. They said, try this.
Do you remember
I like the...
Go ahead. I think about
all things I discovered in college? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sandman.
Okay.
The Tick.
Okay.
I remember reading The Tick, and this is before the animated series come out. And I heard you're going to make an animated series. Like, oh no, they're not. They're going to mess it up. And no, it was actually pretty. It's done pretty well.
Oh man, they did a few stories of the Tick cartoon from the comics.
Yeah.
Ben Edlund was working on it. That was a big plus. They had the
Right.
guy who wrote the original stories,
Yeah.
and then he expanded some of the stories and did a few things. with
Yeah,
it.
there are a few changes
Yeah.
had to be made to make it fit in the Saturday morning format.
Oh, I love the Tick.
Yeah, it's
I
great. It's good.
love the Tick.
It was good stuff.
I am the man from La Mancha.
What else to discover in college? Cheech Wizard.
Von Bode. We've
Von
had many
Bode,
talks about
yeah.
Von Bode.
You know, he's an interesting character. I guess when I really first started back, in college, that's when I was reading a lot more superhero books, things like that. The Star Trek comics at the time that DC was putting out.
Mike W. Barr wrote a bunch of those. I remember
Yeah,
that.
Mike Barr wrote a bunch of those. I remember getting the Who's Who, of the Star Trek universe when I was in college in the little convenience store there on the corner.
I got
Yeah.
I got 2 sets on the top shelf up there.
Yeah.
They were awesome.
But I was reading more superhero stuff back then. It's not so much now, but I'd have to think Ralph Snark.
Ralph Snart. Yes.
Ralph Snark. I was
He
introduced to by another friend in college. Same guy who introduced me to Von Bode.
Now we're talking this stuff, and I'm assuming some people watched some videos before, because usually I would go into a big.
Ralph
Here's
Snart.
this is Ralph Snart, and I would
Snark's
show up
pretty
with.
obscure.
Yeah, we're talking some obscure stuff
Right.
now, but they are in some of my haul videos. So,
Right.
and look them up. Ralph Snart was hilarious, man.
There's a lot of different things. I mean, then after that, I started reading different things like the Sandman, and look at artists and writers, and then you think, you discover more about them. You do read interviews that they had in magazines, like Comics Journal is a good example of that.
Yeah.
And discover who influenced them, and then, hey, I've got to check these people out, and then it just kind of snowballs from there, and then you get an education.
Yeah.
You do your homework, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and that was the collecting back then.
Right.
It wasn't just the comics. You were interested in finding this stuff, and
Yeah. Pre-internet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Back when the learning was hard.
Back- Well, I guess back then, Comic Buyer's Guide was probably the source of information.
We had Comic Spectacular, Comics Buyer's Guide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comic Scene that was done by Starlong.
That's one I was trying to remember right
Yeah.
there. Is the Comic Scene. And then you would have like an odd article here and there out of nowhere. I mean, I've got 2, 3 clippings out of a newspaper about Crisis and stuff.
Right.
Out of nowhere, you'd have something really weird. I remember seeing.
Yeah, I guess they started getting a lot of coverage once,
Yeah.
like Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns. Hit.
Yeah. That's right in that era where it's like it's slowly starting to go mainstream,
Right.
and then you'd have stuff come out because of the Batman movie and stuff coming out.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing some odd things, like you would have some of these comic book writers' names pop up on a TV show here and there because they were writing scripts elsewhere.
Yeah, Howard Chaykin, I
Yeah,
think.
Howard
Yeah.
Chaykin was a big one. I wish I could remember the show. Seems like I was watching Hunter or something. I can't remember. But Gary
Human Target, was that it?
maybe that was it.
Okay.
I don't know. But I remember it's kind of odd to see. To me, comic books. These guys lived in a bubble, and I thought they were into comics as much as we were.
Right.
Some of them were, some of them weren't.
Right.
I never thought that some of them were like, had dreams of Hollywood and stuff. My God, they're people too with dreams. It's amazing.
Yes.
They're not just monkeys on a typewriter.
They're looking for, a job where they can make even more money, right?
Yeah. I always thought the comic book thing would be a dream job. Like I've made it. Silly me. Oh man.
What else?
Well, and it's kind of whatever you want to talk about, man. We're in the 90s now. We're skimming through your life, page by page.
Page by page. There's a lot of blank pages back then.
like sands through the hourglass.
So are the days of
So
our
you
lives.
got gaming. You discovered the Tick, right? The 90s
I
are hit.
guess, yeah, and then from gaming, you discover people that influenced him, like Alan Moore especially. Comics-wise, it's kind of an interesting time. There's a lot of new stuff that was being tried for the first time, creator-owned stuff. Especially in bigger companies, you've never seen it yet.
Yeah.
An arrangement like Game and Ham with Sandman at DC, that was
Yeah.
unheard of at the time.
Well, I'm going to get more specific and stuff because, like, I've seen your collection. We've
Mhm.
talked about stuff. Mark Schultz,
Yeah.
Sergio, Al Williamson, a lot of the classic guys.
Amongst others, many others. We're
And-
probably
and-
forgetting half of
And in
them.
the last video we popped up where I saw pictures of you from like 2001, hanging out with Charles Vess and Kaluta. So how did you end up getting into the classic stuff and meeting these people?
Well, Charles and Mike were big influences on me in terms of the aesthetics of certain art styles that I liked.
Tell them what Charles Vess has done so they'll know who he is, like Stardust.
Well, Charles is more known as a book illustrator these days, but in comics he started off real early, in the early 70s, doing fantasy work. He was, published in, various things like heavy metal to some degree. Epic Illustrated. Probably a lot of people in the comics would know him for doing the cover for the Spider-Man episode where he started wearing the black suit.
Wait, yeah, he did. He did the cover and a pinup with Spider-Man #1.
Yeah, he did a Spider-Man graphic novel called Spirits of the Earth, where Spider-Man goes to Scotland.
Yeah.
After that, he did a few illustrated books, things like that, and I guess really when Sandman came along, he did the.
Sandman 19.
Yeah, number 19, Midsummer Night's Dream, which won a World Fantasy Award, and they didn't change the rules so the comic book couldn't win the award anymore.
Sons of bitches.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really put him in the mind of a lot of people,
And then the legend Mike Kaluta.
Yeah, and then just reading interviews with both those guys, they would talk about who influenced you. And they'd talk about, different artists, things like that. So you'd think, okay, these guys are really good. If they like these people, let's go research them. And then you discover, hey, wow, look at this. It's a whole new world.
Sound familiar, guys?
Yeah, it just snowballs from there. I mean, you read interviews, you do your homework, you discover, hey, who was your influence? They mentioned somebody, and so like, Alex Toth, for example, like, okay, who the heck is Alex Toth? And you read about him.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here, we're talking about this, and to us, this was fun. And I've met people of a younger nature, which I completely understand why they think this, like it's work. And it wasn't. It was fascinating.
It's not work in the sense that most people think work is like drudgery, tedious thing to do. No, it's fun.
Yeah, by the time you found this stuff and it's in front of you, you're like, oh, thank God I finally
found it. It's learning more about something that you like, which is not your normal 9-to-5 concept of work.
Yeah. Right. Man, so yeah, good stuff. I'm sorry, man, but Alex, but through those guys, hearing what their influences were, that made you look back.
And not only in comics, but also illustrators of, book illustrators, science fiction, fantasy illustrators, people that worked in magazines in the 50s and 60s, and even before that, and going back to the 1800s.
Yeah. And are you talking about like political cartoons? So I'm not just sitting here going, yep, agreeing with you.
Well, not just political cartoons, but like to give you a good example, talking about political cartoons.
Yeah.
Ron Cobb, who is a concept artist, started off doing political cartoons.
Okay.
Then he was hired with Dan O'Bannon he did some work on the movie Dark Star.
Okay.
After that, they were both hired to do Jodorowsky's version of Dune, which never actually got made.
Right.
Out of that, they both ended up working on Alien.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
Ron Cobb going from, I guess, what people first knew him as a political cartoonist to doing concept work on movies. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I read an article one time that George Lucas at somebody's house saw a painting that Ron Cobb did, and then immediately contacted Ron Cobb and got him working on Star Wars.
I know exactly who Ron Cobb is now that you said that. Yeah, I was sitting here.
It's the painting of what the guy what came to be in Star Wars was the stormtrooper on top of the Dewback Lizard.
Yeah, man.
That's just one example of the hundreds.
And like we were talking before, like how it seems like everything we ended up liking ended up being connected, like we didn't know it.
Yes.
Has that been your experience? I mean, it's what it sounds like.
Yeah, there's
questions coming from.
You talk about the stereotypical, Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
With art and science fiction and, magazines, movies, things like that, there are so many things that become interconnected after a while.
Yeah. Like, what maybe you're talking about Ron Cobb and stuff, the one I'm thinking of is Mike Ploog.
Right.
I liked Wizards. I saw Wizards like when I was like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And then I liked The Thing from like 80, 81 and some of these other things. And then come to find out it's from Mike Ploog worked on all those things. and you didn't know that as a kid.
Yeah, I watched a movie just a few months ago. It's
And Indiana Jones, the storyboards were from comic book people like Mike Plug. I'm pretty sure it was Plug. Yeah.
Steranko.
Steranko. Oh yeah. That blew my mind because I always wondered how Steranko made a living after comics. Because to me, he was like the epitome of like a comic book artist. And then you get to reading, and you find out all the books he's writing, all the stuff he's self-publishing.
Yeah, I mean, there's other guys like that too, like William Stout and Dave Stevens would be good examples of that.
Yeah.
They're guys who worked both in the comics and have worked in the movie industry as well, doing concept art things like that.
Actually, I need to do my homework because I can't remember if it was Plug or Dave Stevens, but I think one of them worked on Indiana Jones. I just can't remember which one. If I'm even in the ballpark.
So, Dave Stevens may have done some storyboard work. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's done. There's some movie I watched where he did storyboard. They haven't seen me went somewhere. Now I'm like, son of a bitch.
Right.
We're going to keep it real. I ain't going to say shit. Anyway.
Gotcha.
All right. So how long have we been talking? All right, it's a 25-minute video. We're going to leave them with more. So, are you up for more of the shows? So we'll get it from here and there. Okay, man. Anyway, that's your beginning of the introduction of Scott, and I'm glad he's here to do it. And say bye, Scott.
Bye, Scott.